Hello, and welcome to the Bot Nirvana podcast, where we dive into all things software automation. I'm your host, Nandan Mullakra. While I'm not podcasting, I write articles on nandan.info. I hope you enjoy the show. Let's get right into it. Today we have Sean Chou. He's the CEO and co-founder at Catalytic. Catalytic is one of the easiest low-code platform you can find for your software automation needs. They identify themselves as Digital Process Automation or DPA. This is a Q&A session we recorded as part of a demo of the Catalytic platform. The link to the complete video is in the show notes if you like to see the demo as well. I got started by asking Sean how their platform is different from the RPA platforms.
We are all committed to the idea of automating work, right? And we're all committed to the idea that people do and spend a lot of their time doing things that are really kind of bad use of people time. Data entry, pivoting information, like that's just not good use of people time. And in that sense, I feel like we're very mission aligned with RPA. We're very mission aligned with a number of other players. The difference though is that RPA is really constructing kind of a surface automation view. So you're creating a bot that's operating on an existing desktop environment, right? And you might virtualize that and put it into a VM. Whereas on our platform, it started with the idea of how do we make people be able to work efficiently together? So just all the tasks. And then how do we take chunks of work that they're doing as part of these workflows and automate those tasks? So when you look at something that Nasser did, that could have been entirely people, like a task here, and then a task to look this up in a database, and then another task to re-enter it, right? But those are the tasks that actually get automated really easily. Now, on our platform, there's no bot concept. So when you construct something, you're building it in the cloud. There's no infrastructure you need. It's all running in the cloud. So it lends itself extremely well for working with people outside of the firewall. We see a lot of supply chain cases, procurement cases, HR cases, customer operations cases where we're directly interacting with people outside of the four walls of the boundary or the four walls of the firewall corporation, because you're building like a real digital solution, right? So that's one way in which it's different. I think the other way it differs is that we are at our core an orchestration engine. And someone submitted a question saying something like I think they saw automation anywhere, like we integrate to automation anywhere, and we also integrate to UiPath, and then not officially, but we do also integrate to Blue Prism, and we're happy to integrate to the other RPA players outside of those main three. To me, because we are primarily an orchestration engine, I really think of us as orchestrating people, data, and systems. And I think of bots as essentially a system that we can orchestrate, right? So you can actually have a task, or you can have a workflow that starts with a person entering a form and then going and manipulating a spreadsheet and then handing it off to a UiPath bot, and that UiPath bot will enter data into a green screen.
You re-emphasize that it's people first, and I really love that part of it. I just wanted to still again compare with an RPA, because that's the popular question with people. So one question people would have in their mind is, RPA you can extend with some coding, but here I'm thinking you don't want to do that. Is that right?
Well, we don't lead with that because our vision really is kind of impact, but we do have an SDK, and we also have a product called Workbench. So SDK allows you to essentially have embedded Catalytic. And when we think about, I'm a developer, that's what, I was the CTO at Fieldglass and the CEO, but I started really as like a developer. And one of the things that I always found to be kind of a pain in the butt is all that back end stuff, right? Like approvals and workflows and integrations, that was the thing that excited me. So you can use our SDK to act as an embedded back end engine. So you can just focus on creating front end activity and then have all that stuff leveraging our engine. So that's one thing that we provide to developers. The other thing though, and I think this may be closer to what you're asking, is let's say you want to build a custom action that's very unique to your company. You have a proprietary scoring mechanism, you have a proprietary system that you want to interact with, whatever it is, you have a proprietary file format. You can use Workbench to create things that interact with on-prem systems. And you can also use Workbench to create custom actions that then you can upload to your team so that the business users can actually use those actions. So you can extend our platform. You can add to that list of actions that you saw with Workbench. So the role of developers in kind of our universe is really about leveraging and extending developers. Like, they don't have to build everything from scratch every time. Right. They're incredibly scarce resources. We want to make sure that they're able to extend the platform and make their colleagues without the development skills be able to actually be a lot more effective.
Okay, that's great. So what would they use? What skills would they need if they need to develop on the Workbench?
So Workbench today supports C#, and I think we have C# and JavaScript and Python are the main ones that we have right now. Java is coming online next. Same on the SDK, same on the SDK side.
Okay. So one of the questions was DPA versus RPA. So I think you are in a unique position to answer that. You are slotted as RPA. Now you are positioning as DPA. So what do you think the relationship?
Well, I first of all, I don't think that they're mutually exclusive. I think many companies will find themselves using multiple technologies. We certainly position ourselves as something that's also very accessible for smaller companies. And in a smaller company, we might be all that they need. So we do want to be an end-to-end solution. We want to be able to encompass most of the needs of most companies. But the difference in my mind of those categories, keeping in mind also that many players don't play in a single category, right? Like Pega they kind of are a DPA category, but they obviously also have an RPA tool. Even though we view ourselves primarily as sitting in DPA, we have browser automation, UiPath, which is, very much considered an RPA tool, does also have some capabilities, and they're extending their capability footprint to start doing things like process mining and all that stuff. All right, so vendors versus categories. I'm going to set aside the vendors. I'm going to focus on the categories. Okay. The category of DPA to me is essentially the revitalized BPM category. So BPM, business process management, of which Pega is one of the oldest, biggest ones, right, is mostly kind of a failed industry in my mind. Like, it didn't really, it's super promising and people were very excited about it. It just never really took off to the extent that it needed to. And so DPA is kind of like the new take on it. And it's really focused on making people efficient in working with each other. Orchestration is at the heart of a lot of DPA products. And then you see a lot of specialized one. Like I actually would categorize ServiceNow as essentially a very specialized DPA that is really focused around ITSM. And I like ServiceNow. I think it's a great tool. RPA, on the other hand, pure RPA is really all about surface automation. So it's like we were talking about, it's kind of the evolution of Selenium or Rational Robot, but with a lot more enterprise-grade capabilities, a lot more monitoring capabilities, a lot more smarts on top of it. But these obviously are very, very different things. One is designed to make people work better together. The other is designed to pretend to be a person in front of a computer, right? Both have very useful parts of the enterprise tech stack.
Yeah, so that's an interesting point about BPM. And I too consider, and many people have said that BPM is dead, but then people also say RPA is dead. So you can't believe either. So, but
tell that to the investors.
Yeah. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't die or it doesn't live, but it's a gradient, right? I mean, so yeah, BPM has been used lesser and lesser. So yes. In your mind, why did BPM fail? And, how is DPA making it better?
So BPM and another category is very, very similar called EAI, Enterprise Application Integration. Those two categories fundamentally failed because they were too hard. I've been a technologist for a long time, and I implemented Vitria way back in the day. And I implemented Pega way back in the day. I mean, Pega, most people don't realize how old Pega really is. I think they started in like early 90s or something. It's a pretty old company.
Right.
And they were really they're just too hard. They're super expensive, really hard to implement, really hard to maintain. So you're able to get some momentum, but it's very, very hard to get any sort of scale, and it's very hard and expensive to maintain. And they also came at a time before API first was a concept. So they almost came at a time when everyone was focused on client server technologies, and the whole web thing wasn't really mature enough for them to leverage. So the new versions of all of those, and the reason why I think they're going to be more successful, why we're going to be more successful, is because we're built in a different era. We're not built in the era of client servers. We're built in an era where everything is API first, where everything is advanced. Like the technology has evolved enough now from our perspective that we can actually lower the barrier to entry in terms of how hard it is to build something, right? And we couldn't have done that cost effectively back in the mid 90s. But today, natural language processing is dirt cheap. We don't have to build every single capability because it is an API first world. We have capability ecosystem partners. So Google Vision and Azure provide the OCR capabilities. We can leverage machine learning from Amazon, from IBM Watson. All of those capabilities are accessible. Our value add is not creating that primary type of research, but making it easy to use and easy to configure. Right, so it's kind of a different world, and to us, the no code aspect is the transformational thing. It is the thing that will take it out of the realm of inaccessible, low impact into meaningful impact.
Great. And
the analog, by the way, for EAI, which we also speak a lot to, is iPaaS. So Vidria, Web Methods, Tibco, all of those things are they're still there. Like companies use them, right? Just like a lot of companies still use Pega. But if you had to pick a new platform from scratch today, I don't know that those would be the most logical picks. You would probably pick someone like a MuleSoft, or you might pick, there are better iPaaS companies now. So they're kind of like the new version.
Yeah. Interesting points there. So I have personally also worked on EAI, Tipco, so I am aware of this. So I think you have two interesting points. You said technology has progressed, and then I think also the development is progressing towards no code. Two interesting points. One more thing I think is about the whole concept of BPM. It's been like boiling the ocean, right? Let's do all the process from end to end, and then it's a multi-year project, multi-million-dollar project, and it's all IBM, Oracle, and I think that has changed now because people can't wait for so long, and that's one reason I think RPA is popular, because you can do things in months or weeks.
Yeah.
I saw a project where EY is doing a project for one of the states where they're doing the whole employment claims processing within a month, 4 weeks, and at $7.5 million, but that's different point. But they're doing it in 1 month. So yeah, I think it's a different world, and now is a time to be agile and do things outcome based.
You need to see gains fast. I mean, and I think one of the things that's really rewarding about the newer platforms, and a thing that we focus a lot on is you can iterate very quickly. Like you saw NASA iterated right in front of us, right? And we talked about even doing live stuff, right? You can iterate that quickly, and you can see results very quickly. And I think that's really important in today's environment. It's not even fast results, which obviously is important, but even seeing steady, visible progress toward those rapid results is really important. And most of the platforms that are more successful today, I think, are showing signs of that.
Good. So question about, again, relating to an RPA world, can this be run like in an unattended mode? Can it be run in the background when people are already working on the computers? How does it work?
That's a great question. And that's actually one of, because we're not RPA, that's not even actually, if you had asked me that in 2016 when we started Catalytic, before I knew what RPA was, I would be like, I don't understand the question, right? Because the idea of a desktop client never actually entered our mind. And so the simple answer to that is yes, you can absolutely work on your desktop. And it's because we don't have a bot that runs on your desktop. So you're building something in a browser, and then it's running in a multi-tenant or private tenant environment in the cloud somewhere. So there's complete separation between what you're building on your desktop and your browser and where it runs. Right? It's actually running somewhere else. One of the nice things about our platform is you don't have to have any additional infrastructure. There's no provisioning. You don't have to worry about a separate desktop. You don't have to worry about building something on a desktop and then porting it over to a server and hoping that the environment's the exact same so the bot works the way that you built it on your desktop. That sort of thing just doesn't exist. And in many ways, I'm kind of surprised that that actually does exist at all, because that seems so 1990s to me, but I think that's just an artifact of the way RPA works, right? It's just like, it's because it's desktop automation.
Right. Okay. So stepping into some practical aspects, do you have a community edition for Catalytic that people can use?
We have a community, and then we have just launched a trial edition. So we do have a guided trial that people can go through, and it's, obviously free. And we're about to launch a community edition. So come probably, I don't know, maybe end of July or August, but it will be soon that we're going to launch a full-on community edition. We do want developers to come on, even though we're no code and low code. I think you've seen that in the hands of a developer, no code doesn't mean inefficient. It means it doesn't mean a mismatch. It means they're even more efficient than like a developer working on a no code platform is like a 10x developer, right? So there's a lot of value for developers. We want developers, we want other business users to be able to come on and learn on our platform in a way where they don't have to at a corporate level buy a license. That way they can kind of build up the business case, in real time on our platform. If anyone on wants to be notified about when the community edition is available, just ping me, let me know, and we'll be happy to make sure that you get a notification when it does become available.
So would people be able to access the workbench part also, and then would they be able to create new actions? Also, are you planning to create a library where people can contribute to actions?
Yes. So we have all the infrastructure for a library. We didn't show this to you, but when you go to create a new workflow, there's a showcase, and that showcase pulls from something that we right now curate. But in the community, you can upload workflows. So there's a forum I can't remember the name of the forum, but there's a forum on our community where you can export any of your workflows, and it'll export everything, and then you have a file that you can then post to the forum. So people can share things already, entire workflows, not just an action. And the cool thing about our actions is you can extend our platform using Workbench to create a custom action, but you can actually take a workflow and save it as an action too. So you can create a lot of things on our platform. And what we see is, people creating things with like API actions, and then they'll save that as an action. So let's say we don't have an action right now that talks to, Contentful, right? I can go in there and I can use API actions because it's a clean API to have, let's say, enter data into Contentful, and then I can save that workflow as an action. And then from my team's perspective, it's just a new action, right? So people will be able to use that. We have not worked through all the logistics on how we'll make Workbench available. So it likely won't be available initially in the community edition, only because we have like a little bit more thinking to go through there. People can actually access a lot of this information already without an account. Like you can go to help.catalytic.com, that has all of our actions on there. You can go to developers.catalytic.com, and that will tell you a little bit about the SDK. It doesn't have as much info in there on the Workbench yet, but all of that documentation is available.
Okay. And as the community grows, like UiPath Go or Blue Prism DX, you never know what developers can come up with, a lot of
Totally,
different actions which can extend the
totally.
platform.
I'm very excited about the idea. I mean, an ecosystem is really core to the way we think about our platform.
Okay.
And so I'm super excited about opening up things. And we do actually, in our showcase, we do have some implementation partners that have contributed to the showcase. So FSOF, which is an invoice processing company, they've just contributed something. Grant Thornton, which is one of our implementation partners, they're about to contribute a number of things. I think Capgemini is actually about to contribute a number of things. So those will be exciting.
Probably not a very popular question with some vendors, but I don't know. Do you have transparent pricing options?
We're going to have transparent pricing options. So I won't even answer it now because we're going to put it on the website. So you'll be able to just come in and look at the website. But that will probably launch. That will probably go in like middle of this month. So it will be soon.
Okay.
Yep. I'm committed to transparent pricing. I hate opaque enterprise pricing.
Right.
I mean, I recognize that enterprise pricing is still necessary. So we'll still probably have that call us now thing. And that really just represents, we don't know what you need us to do as an enterprise. So if you need us to set up a special data center in Germany because you can't have it anywhere else, obviously that pricing is going to be different. But we're going to have very transparent pricing for most companies, and most people will be able to figure out their own pricing.
Yeah, that will be great, because that's one problem with RPA space, with a lot of opaque spacing, a lot of different kinds of licensing, you name it. And,
I'll say a unique feature of our pricing model, which we've emphasized, the automation space talks a lot about the long tail of business processes, right? Like I'm sure you and all your listeners here have heard the term, the long tail of business processes. And the problem with the long tail of the business processes is if you have a unit-based price that scales linearly, or even if there's a volume discount as you have each additional process come on, there's a floor that you've established where if your process can't be optimized below or above that floor, you just won't do it. So there's actually no way to get to the long tail of the business pricing because your business model restricts it. So we've been very intentional, and we've also had the benefit of being, a very new company. So we've been able to think about the pricing model, and we've constructed a pricing model that allows for unlimited use. And because we're also cloud-based, it's actually a lot easier for us to do. So the idea of the unlimited use model, of course, is that you will be able to get to that long tail because the marginal costs of your 100th workflow is going to be from a vendor license, like what you pay at Catalytic, will be effectively zero, right? Because you've already kind of paid for it in your first 100. So in your next 100, it's effectively zero. Now there's people time, so you still have to take that into consideration. But it really allows, it's like, to the best of my knowledge, it's the only pricing model that allows for true pursuit of the long tail of business processes.
Yeah, and I like that you're thinking about it, right? Because otherwise it becomes more of a business case, and then you just can't go beyond a certain number of, and that's probably one of the reasons it's difficult to scale with RPA. And also RPA is based on number of bots, many of the RPA at least, and you don't have that concept or constraint. So that's good to know. All right. So one last question before we go, because the times that we are in, the COVID, what do you see as the new normal, and how do you see what's happening right now in the automation space, and how do you see that evolving with the new normal?
That's a great question. Actually, strangely, or I guess, serendipitously, I'm going to be moderating a panel. I don't know when, but it's an IQPC, it's Intelligent Automation Week panel that is going to be talking about this. And it's got some great fellow panelists. It's like someone from Visa, someone from USAA, someone from BNY. And so, great enterprise brands, really experienced people. We're going to be talking about this exact topic. But I'll say here that one of the biggest things to think about is COVID has been both a catalyst and an excuse for redesigning your organization, right? Like the world's going to change, or has changed, and it's actually not going to go back to normal. We don't know what it's going to go back to, but it's been the perfect forcing function to redesign organizations. And all the people who've been trying to and haven't been able to redesign their organizations for whatever reasons now have like the perfect cover. And when you redesign your organization with today's technology, you're going to think automation at the core, right? And that's different because now you're not trying to layer in automation on top of a whole bunch of people, and you're like just trying to figure out, how do I actually sort out this mess? Today, you have a bit of a period, a spot of time where you can say, what is my organization like? What's the most sensible organization that I can construct? And use automation heavily, and then kind of layer the people on top of that, because it's not, few businesses want to get rid of all their people, but a lot of businesses have a bunch of people doing things that don't make a lot of sense, right? And so this is a unique moment in time for people to get very aggressive about thinking about their design of their organizations. The other thing I think that's really interesting, it's beneficial for us, is that the people orchestration side of automation, what RPA players would call things like human in the loop or attended automation, like that notion becomes more critical than ever when you have a distributed workforce. And so for us, because we're so people first and people centric, it's very natural to actually have a distributed workforce receive tasks, and they don't have to worry about the handoff. So our product actually eases the fact that people are no longer right next to each other and can just kind of shout over. Like, I don't have to shout over, hey, Nasser, I just sent that over to you. Can you take a look at it? Right? Because those tasks now are orchestrated by our platform.
Great. Yeah, great time to redesign, and great time to redesign with people first, right? And
automation at the core, and really, what's a distributed workforce? Like our company is going, like I'm sure we're going remote first. So when we go back, we're going to be remote first, and I think many companies will be.
Right. Great. On that note, I think it's a good time to end. Thank you, Sean, for doing this. Thank you for spending time with us. Thank you for joining the Bot Nirvana podcast. Appreciate if you can leave a review on iTunes or Stitcher. Catch the show notes on botnirvana.org. While you're there, feel free to explore more automation ideas, tutorials, tools, and more. See you next time.